Illinois government is currently designed to benefit those inside the system rather than those working families throughout our state. We must institute major reforms, or whatever balanced budget we craft together this year will be undone in the years ahead by the special interests that make their money from the government and pay politicians to spend more. We must eliminate conflicts of interest in state government and end our broken system. These reforms won't be easy. Decades of special interest laws will be difficult to undo. But to be compassionate, we must be competitive. And that means having the political courage to put the people's interests first and the special interests last. Our top priority for financial reform must be our pension system. That is true regardless of the Supreme Court's decision on SB 1. Even if our pension systems were fully funded, taxpayers would still be on the hook for $2 billion. But our pension systems are not fully funded. They're currently $111 billion in the hole, the worst pension crisis in America. As it stands right now, 1 out of every $4 taken from taxpayers by the state goes into a system that is giving more than 11,000 government retirees tax-free, 6-figure pensions worth as much as, in one case, $450,000 per year. Without reforms proposed in this budget, nearly 25 cents of every tax dollar will continue going into a broken pension system instead of into our social services safety net, into our schools, or back into the pockets of taxpayers and small businesses. That is unfair and it's unsustainable. And it changes with this budget. Government employees deserve fair and competitive benefits. But we cannot continue to raise taxes on all Illinoisans in order to fund the retirement benefits of a small fraction of our residents. The pension reform plan in this budget will protect every dollar of benefits earned to date. And let me repeat that. This is core. This is core of this issue. The pension reform plan we are proposing protects every dollar of benefits that have earned so far. What you've earned, you're going to get. And if you are retired, you get everything you were promised. That is fair and that is right. But moving forward, all future work should be under the Tier 2 pension plan, except for our police officers and our firefighters. Those who put their lives on the line in service to our state deserve to be treated differently. And I believe the public will stand with me in this single case of special treatment. This budget also gives employees hired before 2011 a choice to take a buyout option, a lump sum payment, and a defined contribution plan in return for a voluntary reduction in cost of living adjustments. It's time to empower our workforce and address one of the biggest fiscal challenges we face. These reforms will yield more than $2 billion in savings in the first year alone. And this is critical as well, and by bringing health care benefits more in line with those received by the taxpayers who pay for them, we can save an additional $700 million per year. We recognize that some of these reforms cannot be achieved through legislation alone. Some must be achieved through good faith bargaining. And I hope that those on the other side of the table are as committed as I am to achieving the types of meaningful reform that are necessary for Illinois' future. While the state tightens its belt, so too must local governments and transportation agencies. The amount of money transferred to local governments in Illinois has grown 42% over the past decade. The state currently transfers $6 billion every year to local governments. Those governments are currently sitting on more than $15 billion in cash reserves. Think about that. The reduction in local government sharing in this budget is equal to just 3% of their total revenue. Along with this modest cutback, our turnaround reforms will reduce unfunded mandates and give local governments and voters the tools to save hundreds of millions of dollars through consolidation, employment flexibility, and compensation restructuring. Similarly, waste and inefficiency can be cut from the complex web that comprises our public transportation structure. Statewide, our public transportation agencies spend billions of taxpayer dollars. Our budget reductions for the state's largest transit agency amount to less than 5% of its overall budget. And here, too, the proposals in our turnaround agenda give our transportation entities the tools to save hundreds of millions of dollars. Reining in these costs allows us to minimize reductions in other areas of the budget. For Medicaid, our budget reduces costs significantly while maintaining eligibility levels for most lower-income Illinoisans. We plan to re-implement many of the Medicaid reform measures that were enacted just a few years ago by you. And they were well done, well thought out. We are going to reenact those, re-implement those. Many of them have already been undone in recent years. By reinstituting the SMART Act and prioritizing our redetermination efforts, we will save hundreds of millions of dollars. Our budget will also reduce costs by fixing our broken criminal justice system. Far too many offenders return to prison within 3 years of leaving, a vicious and costly cycle. Our prisons are overcrowded. Our corrections officers are overworked. By reforming our criminal justice system, we can make our prisons safer, rehabilitate ex-offenders so they become productive members of society, and save many tens of millions of dollars for the taxpayers. Taken together, our turnaround reforms, along with the difficult but necessary choices in this budget, will enable us to invest in our future. Making these tough choices is a small price to pay for the promise of a better tomorrow for our children and our grandchildren. In the gallery today, we are joined by students from Lincoln Community High School in Lincoln and Lanphier High School and Lincoln Magnet School here in Springfield. This budget allows us to invest in them. We are going to invest in you and all the school children in our state. For years, state support for education has been cut, even when it didn't have to be. It's time to make education our top priority again. And that's what this budget does. We start by increasing high-quality early childhood education options for our most vulnerable children. Every dollar invested today in early childhood education saves us more than $7 in the future. Increasing funding for our youngest is the smart and the compassionate thing to do. This budget also increases K-12 education funding by $300 million. Helping school districts in our state that most need our support. We have much more work to do together to make our schools among the best in the nation, but we are proud of the commitment we're making together with you in this budget. What we propose today is a turnaround budget. It improves public safety, provides care for our most vulnerable residents, boosts funding for education, and restructures the core costs of state government that are holding us back. However, while this budget begins to fix our financial problems, the only real answer to our challenges is to become pro-growth again. We need a booming economy. More small businesses and entrepreneurs starting here, and more people and businesses moving here. If we don't take action now to expand the economic pie, the people of Illinois will forever be left to fight over smaller and smaller slices. Our citizens deserve a path to economic growth and empowerment. And that means putting people first and special interests last. To grow our economy, we must enact meaningful workers' compensation reform, unemployment insurance reform, lawsuit reform, pension reform, and tax reform. We've got to freeze property taxes. They're our most punishing taxes in Illinois. Cut the red tape. Cut the red tape inside state and local government, and let people control their own economic destinies. We need to end the corrupt bargains inside government and end the conflicts of interest in our government. We need to finally let the people have their say on a term limits amendment to the state constitution. If we make these reforms, we'll be laying a solid foundation for economic growth and prosperity. With reform, we will be able to invest more in education and give our kids world-class schools. We'll be able to invest more in our social services safety net to help our most vulnerable residents. And we'll be able to invest more in our infrastructure, which is critical. The turnaround plan here reflects President Lincoln's call to think anew and act anew. In it, we end the irresponsible and reckless practices of the past and make sure they don't happen again. We make difficult choices that no one wants to make, but it's what this occasion requires. And it's what we were all elected to do. Make choices based on what's best for the next generation, not for the next election. This is our last, best chance to get our house in order. Let's get it done together. Thank you all very much, and God bless you for your service to the people of Illinois. Thank you.
Will the Committee of Escort please come forward to escort the governor from the chamber? The President of the Senate is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the joint session do now arise.
The President of the Senate has moved that the joint session do now arise. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the joint session will now arise. The regular session will come to order.
Representative Lang and the chair. Mr. Clerk, committee announcements.
Attention members of the House. The following committees have been canceled this afternoon. Insurance.